Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets and our co-host, Zach Small Cap Research, we are very pleased you have joined us for our quarterly Life Sciences Investor Forum. Our next live presentation is from LadRx. LadRx is a biopharmaceutical company focused on discovering and developing new therapeutics, primarily targeting cancer treatments. Please note, you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings by clicking Book a Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Stephen Snowdy, Chief Executive Officer of LadRx, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol LADX. Welcome, Stephen.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for tuning in and spending a little bit of time learning about LadRx. Again, I'm Stephen Snowdy, Chief Executive Officer of LadRx, and happy to be able to share this story with you. As mentioned, we are in the space of cancer therapeutics. Despite a lot of progress over the past 2 decades in identifying, diagnosing, and treating cancer, it's still taking 10 million people from us worldwide every year, so it's a really big problem. Where we focus in cancer therapeutics is targeted therapeutics. We take known active chemotherapeutic drugs and we add a piece to them called LADDER, which results in the targeting of the chemotherapeutic to the tumor itself. And of course, with the goal with any targeting of a chemotherapeutic is to allow for higher dosing at the same or lower level of toxicity. This has been tried with things like antibodies and nanoparticles. The drawbacks from those approaches being that these macromolecules have side effects of their own. They're very complex to manufacture and come with a higher cost than do small molecules. Another advantage of our way of targeting chemotherapeutics to the tumor is that all patients have our binding target. With something like an antibody, one has to screen their patients for the presence of the target before administering the drug to make sure that the antibody target is present within a patient. Everybody carries our target, so pre-screening of patients is not necessary. The first LADDER drug is a drug called aldoxorubicin. This is a targeted form of the very commonly prescribed billion-dollar drug doxorubicin. Doxorubicin has been a really, really good drug. It has saved countless lives, but it comes with toxicities that limit both the single dose and lifetime dosing of the drug, primarily in terms of cardiotoxicity. Aldoxorubicin has been in 600 patients from phase 1 all the way to phase 3 in soft tissue sarcoma. And in its phase 1, we established a max tolerated dosing that's 3.5 times the amount of doxorubicin that can be administered in a native format. And in a phase 2 showed a statistically significant extension of progression-free survival with less cardiotoxicity than doxorubicin, and again with cardiotoxicity being the primary dose-limiting toxicity of doxorubicin. We're well positioned at this time with the drug to go for a pre-ND with the FDA in about 6 months. Based on discussions we've already had with the FDA, we do not expect to need any further additional human study, and we expect to submit an NDA under Section 505(b)(2) and be ready for market launch with aldoxorubicin somewhere in a 12 to 18 months from funding, which is something that we're seeking right now. And just an important historical perspective for the drug, we outlicensed it back in 2016 for over $340 million in milestones and royalties, but only recently took the drug back from the licensee due to their narrowing their focus away from small molecules and single agent therapeutics. Aldoxorubicin enjoys orphan drug status in 5 different cancer types, and it's not only aldoxorubicin in our pipeline. We have products that stretch all the way back to preclinical and getting ready for phase 1, including LADDER-7, which is the next most advanced product. LADDER-7 is a very powerful anti-tumor chemotherapeutic that we have now manufactured under GMP. We have completed our non-GLP toxicology, our GLP toxicology, and have completed all IND enabling activities, and that drug is now ready to go to IND in phase 1 clinical studies in human. We have a very simplified cap structure at LadRx. We have no debt, we have no warrants, we have no preferred shares with only common shares outstanding, and we are very capital efficient. We operate virtually, and like most biotech companies, we have a portfolio of patents that protect our products. So what is LADR? This stands for Linker Activated Drug Release. And what we do with this is we take a known chemotherapeutic that we know has anti-tumor activity, but suffers from side effects, off-target side effects like most chemotherapeutics, and we attach something called a LADR molecule. And what happens when we do that is the molecule is injected into the patient. It immediately, irreversibly, and inactively binds to a protein in the patient's blood called albumin. Albumin is the most abundant protein in circulating blood in humans. And what's important about albumin in cancer is that tumors use albumin as a nutritional source to feed themselves. They use albumin to move signaling inside and outside of the tumors. And due to albumin's large size, it accumulates within the tumors. So depicted here in the drawing, the red part, for example, would be the chemotherapeutic. The blue part is what binds it to the patient's circulating albumin, and then there's a linker in between. And what happens is the drug hitches a ride on the albumin, accumulates within the tumor, it circulates in the blood in inactive form, but once it's inside the tumor, it senses the lower pH that exists inside of tumors, and the drug is then released in its active form to kill tumor cells. And we certainly demonstrated proof of concept in aldoxorubicin. Again, aldoxorubicin is a targeted form of doxorubicin using the LADR molecule. And what we showed with aldoxorubicin is it could be dosed in patients at over 3.5 times the amount of doxorubicin that can be dosed in a patient. We also showed with aldoxorubicin through these 600 patients that the drug has been in, that it crosses the blood-brain barrier. And what we achieve with this and what we've demonstrated is that we can target tumors with the simplicity and the low cost of a small molecule. And again, it's not just aldoxorubicin. We have a pipeline of these LADR drugs, LADR 7 through 10. And with these next generation drugs, LADR 7 through 10, we've shown that we can actually deliver up to 10 times as much LADR-based drug as we can with the native drug on its own. So again, aldoxorubicin has been through about 600 patients worth of clinical trialing in humans. The phase 1, we established the max tolerated dosing at about 3.5 times, again, what you can administer with naked doxorubicin. And then in a phase 2 study in soft tissue sarcoma that was randomized 2-to-1 against doxorubicin, we saw a statistically significant extension of progression-free survival relative to doxorubicin. And we also showed a very substantial decrease, about a 2/3 decrease in the cardiotoxicity as measured by left ventricular ejection fraction. This was not powered to assess overall survival, but in terms of efficacy and in terms of having a better safety profile, quite a profound result with aldoxorubicin in a phase 2. We then took the drug into a phase 3, and unfortunately, the phase 3 was designed very, very differently. Not a smart clinical trial design in a phase 3. But we did establish some important data points. We still saw progression-free survival extension trending towards aldoxorubicin, but did not reach statistical significance on that. If one looks at the subgroups of liposarcoma and leiomyosarcoma, statistical significance was achieved in the primary endpoint in those subgroups. We also saw the same impact on cardiac safety that we saw in the phase 1 and 2, and quite a bit a reduction compared to doxorubicin in terms of cardiotoxicity. And so where do we take aldoxorubicin next? The plan right now, after discussions with the FDA, is to take aldoxorubicin to approval through the 505(b)(2) pathway, which provides a very abbreviated pathway to market for drugs that have the same active ingredient as a drug that's already been approved. And though aldoxorubicin is a new chemical entity, the active part of that drug is still doxorubicin, so it does fall within a purview of 505(b)(2). The plan is not to do any additional human studies. We feel that the existing data with the phase 2 acting as a bridge to efficacy and the phase 3 that's already been done acting as a bridge for safety fulfills the requirements for 505(b)(2). And so the plan is to go to the FDA in about 6 months after funding, which again is something we're trying to achieve right now. Go to the FDA for a pre-NDA meeting, and then about 6 months after that, about 12 months after we've gained funding, go back to the FDA for an NDA, and the plan would then be to be on the market, ready to launch 12 to 18 months from funding. Again, doxorubicin is $1 billion a year drug that is very limited by its cardiotoxicity, so we feel pretty strongly that the drug will position very well in the market. And of course, parallel to the 505(b)(2) work that we're doing, which is mainly putting paper together, we'll also be working on the commercial manufacturing side of aldoxorubicin and other pre-launch activities such as market access. And it's not just aldoxorubicin we're cooking up. We have ladders 7, 8, 9, and 10. Auristatin E and maytansine form the basis of these drugs. Auristatin in ladders 7 and 8, maytansine in ladders 9 and 10. Again, these are targeted forms of these drugs. If you're not familiar with auristatin E and maytansine, they are incredibly powerful anti-tumor molecules, but they cannot be used in their native form because they are just that powerful. With targeting these molecules, we can get to doses that are about 10 times what you could administer in their untargeted forms. And we've worked very hard from a group of 70 analogs of these two drugs to get down to these 4. And what you see right here, ladders 7 and 8 are depicted. The top panel is in a small tumor model. The bottom panel is in a large tumor model of patient-derived melanoma in nude mice. And what you can see if you look at the bottom, the black line on top is auristatin E by itself at its max tolerated dosing of 0.3 milligrams per kilogram. And again, we get to much, much higher dosing that we're capable of doing in the bottom 2 lines with auristatin E. And what you can see is a very profound effect on tumor volume that is very durable. And again, this is in melanoma, but we also see very similar impact in ovarian cancer and non-small cell lung cancer. You can see this lucky nude mouse at the bottom after treatment with auristatin E in the form of ladder 7. And so very profound impacts. We're really excited about these drugs and their potential. So we also have ladders 9 and 10, which are based on maytansine. And what we've taken forward so far are all of ladders 7, 8, 9, and 10 meet our requirements for taking further towards the clinic. But the one that we focused on is ladder 7. And we can't do all of these drugs. We had to start somewhere. So with ladder 7, as I said in the beginning, we have completed all of the IND enabling work necessary to assemble the IND and submit that to the FDA to get us ready to go into phase 1 clinical trials. We've successfully manufactured the drug under GMP, so we now have a clinical batch. We have plenty of drug available at this time to go into the phase 1, and all that is required before going into phase 1 in humans is to package the drug up in bottles for the actual clinical study and to submit the IND to the FDA. And so just in summary, we are building and manufacturing and taking through clinic targeted molecules for chemotherapeutics. Our latest stage development product is ready to go through its final stages and through the 505(b)(2) process with the FDA. And again, we do not expect the pathway to NDA approval for this drug to involve any further human clinical studies. It may require one more animal study and some statistical studies, but we expect that to be all that we need to meet the requirements of 505(b)(2). We would be expecting to go to the FDA in a very near-term potential inflection point for the company in about 6 to 8 months with a plan and a pre-NDA meeting. And then within 12 months after funding, we would be ready to go to the FDA for the NDA and looking for a launch somewhere in a 12 to 18 month time frame following funding, which is something we're looking to achieve right now. Additional drugs coming through the pipeline with LadDX ready to go into a phase 1, and then LadDX 8, 9, and 10 back in the preclinical stages. So that's the presentation, and I'm happy to move into questions at this time. A question on the status that we expect at the FDA right now. Of course, you know, there's a lot of turmoil in all parts of the government. At this point, we're not seeing an impact on being able to, on the FDA being able to meet their obligations of getting things turned around. But, you know, who knows where that goes over the next few months. But right now, we're not seeing a direct impact on our ability to get filings done and get answers from the FDA. Somebody's asking the progress since several years ago. So back again, 2016, this product was out licensed. At that point, the 505(b)(2) idea had been launched. The company had met with the FDA on 505(b)(2) right before the product was out licensed, actually a month before. And then the product was out licensed and was at the licensee. Since then, we just got the drug back as that company shifted their focus. Again, we just got it back last year. And as we announced in November, we've started back up the 505(b)(2) process from where it was. And actually, after a lot of analysis by a 505(b)(2) expert and other team members, we've actually trimmed down quite a bit what we would be proposing to the FDA for the 505(b)(2). And actually, it's, you know, the program has actually gotten a lot more streamlined, and we've built a lot more confidence in it since we've been working on it again. Funding, you know, it's no secret that markets are very, very difficult to access right now. We are going to need additional funding to move the program forward. Everybody, you can see from our filings, we don't have a lot of cash at this point, and we'll be needing additional funding, which is something we're working on now. So what has changed, I think, is the attractiveness of the program. We just announced back in November that we're reactivating the 505(b)(2) process. I think that surprised a lot of people. You know, our market cap responded very positively to that news because, you know, I think anyone who understands the 505(b)(2) and especially where we are in it right now, where we have so much human data that we're unlikely to need more data, we're getting a lot of positive feedback on that since we've been out talking about it for the past couple of months. Whether or not it's enough to overcome the current difficulties within the funding market is anybody's guess, but we're certainly out there right now talking about, you know, a very short-term potential inflection point in the pre-NDA meeting, and it seems to be resonating well. But again, everybody's suffering right now. It's a very difficult environment, and obviously we can't guarantee that we can overcome that. So that's the status of the funding and the FDA question. And yeah, long-term investors, you know, there have been a lot of people who've been involved with this company for a very long time. And we're trying to make progress as soon as we can. I mean, a year and a half ago, LadDX was an idea. It was a drawing of a molecule. And in the last year, we've taken that molecule from being nowhere through non-GLP tox, through GMP manufacturing, and through all of the IND enabling activities with that drug now being ready to go into human studies. So obviously a lot of progress with what the company has. And also, you know, a year ago, we didn't even have aldoxorubicin. That belonged to somebody else. And so in the last year, tremendous amount of progress with LadDX, getting it from nowhere all the way through its IND enabling activities. And now we have aldoxorubicin back. We own it outright and doing the best that we can given the market circumstances. So that's all of the questions that I have on my list, and that's the presentation. I hope you get a chance to take a look at the opportunity. Definitely a lot of progress with some near-term potential inflection points, and we consider, you know, the risk at this point being the FDA, but really feel comfortable in the approach and feel comfortable that we have everything we need to meet the technical requirements of 505(b)(2. And we'll be pursuing that in earnest. So that's all I have for you today, and thank you very much.